So will you support the Democrats in 2012?
Why should I support the Democrats?
Because that is what you have been conditioned to support during your public school education and media indoctrination while you were growing up. This is your last chance. All you need to do is say I support the Democrats, and you won't be blacklisted and thrown into this boiling lava pit of doom.
No, I will not.
Why won't you support the Democrats? We are so tolerant and compassionate of people who think like we do.
I just cannot seem to bring myself to support a political party and mindset that sells out its country's troops in a time of war, that retreats in cowardice when the going gets tough in battle, that doesn't acknowledge the danger of Islamic terrorism, that views terrorists as just misunderstood individuals, that opposes harsh interrogation techniques against terrorists that could potentially save thousands of innocent American lives, that was against surveillance programs aimed at catching terrorists plotting attacks on America in the name of invasion of privacy, that has forgotten the lessons of 9/11, that bases our national security policies on popular world opinion, that wants to directly negotiate with terrorist states and terrorist leaders, that has the blood of over 1 million Cambodians, thousands of ethnic Chinese, thousands of South Vietnamese, and many ethnic Hmong tribes on their hands when they forced retreat from Vietnam, that supports genocidal Palestinian terrorists over democratic Israelis, that believes in cutting funding to our military and freezing military pay, that hates traditional Christians more than Islamofascists, that hates George W. Bush more than Hitler or Ahmadinejad, that believes in Al Gore's lies about global warming, that demonizes rich people who work hard, that teaches revisionist history to our school children, that encourages the degradation of the institution of marriage, that supports racist affirmative action and racial quotas, that wants to brainwash our children into accepting homosexual behavior, that seeks to confuse our children with regard to gender identity, that seeks re-education training for individuals with opinions opposing gay marriage, that encourages the radical homosexual agenda, social acceptance of homosexual behavior, and equates homosexuality to black civil rights issues, that wants to weaken our military by promoting open homosexuality in our armed forces, that seeks to downplay or ignore the danger between homosexual behavior and risk of AIDS, that wants to create a larger welfare state and more government dependency, that discourages hard work and charity through higher taxation, that discourages business growth through higher taxation, that encourages job outsourcing through higher taxation, that encourages and cultivates feelings of victimhood based on race or economic status, that promotes class warfare in political speeches, that supports trial lawyers, frivolous lawsuits, and the principle of lawfare, that makes fun of quote dumb Americans who are proud of their country, that fosters feelings of elitism and condescension towards people who live in the South and in rural areas, that thinks that radical Christianity is just as dangerous or more so than radical Islam, that thinks spending more money in an economic crisis will upright the economy, that believes in creating more government programs and bureaucracy, that places greater importance of radical environmentalism over a sound economy and defense, that supports government takeover of the auto industry, that supports government takeover of the banking system, that supports government bailouts of private companies, that believes in more laws and regulations to exert more control over the populace, that intends to abolish the Second Amendment, that seeks to diminish the First Amendment on the radio, on college campuses, in written publications, in the news media, and in the workplace, that debases the American culture through the liberal glorification of drugs, violence, promiscuity, and cynicism towards good values and hard work, that encourages open border anarchy with Mexico, that favors speech codes that punish certain phrases or ideas on college campuses, that encourages blacklisting of conservatives in Hollywood, public education, television, journalism, and other jobs, that elected a presidential candidate with the least amount of accomplishments, the least experience, and least understanding of the military, economy, and foreign policy in our nation's history, that passes laws contrary to the votes of the people through appointing activist judges that legislate from the bench, that seeks to indoctrinate our college students in liberal ideas, that tries to diminish and secularize our holiday traditions, that calls Christmas parties holiday parties at school and work, that openly ridicules and persecutes people with religious convictions in politics and the media, that supports and promotes some of the most violent and hateful anti-war and peace protests ever seen, that supports drug use and legalization of drugs, that supports spreading the wealth around and forced income redistribution to bums, drug addicts, people who don't work, people who don't apply themselves, and people who have made bad decisions with their lives/money, that fosters and cultivates hatred towards anyone who disagrees with liberal doctrine and ideology, yet professes tolerance towards all cultures and people, that compromises their values based on what other people think, that believes child sex offenders can be rehabilitated and shouldn't be put away for their crimes against children, that supports indoctrinating kindergarteners into liberal interpretations of sex education, that is against nuclear power to alleviate the energy crisis, that is against drilling for our own oil in Alaska based on emotional environmentalist propaganda, that would rather see humans suffer and die in Africa than harm a tree or a mosquito, that encourages rampant sexual practices through the media which has contributed to the massive spread of venereal diseases, that encourages single motherhood and freely accepts divorce, that encourages materialism, that discourages piety and religion, that encourages infanticide, partial birth abortions, and the general destruction of new human life however helpless and defenseless the baby may be, that encourages the adage, if it feels good, do it, that encourages rampant feminism that fosters hatred towards and discriminates against men, but ignores attacks against conservative women and women in Islamic countries, that politicizes scientific research to fit their political agendas, such as global warming, AIDS, stem cell research, and evolution research, that supported a past president who allowed al-Qaeda to grow unchecked, who encouraged and emboldened terrorists when he retreated from Somalia, who ignored the USS Cole incident, who slashed our military budget, who contributed to the degradation of the field of medicine, who started the subprime mortgage crisis resulting in a massive recession in 2008, who erected barriers between intelligence communities contributing to 9/11, who ignored able danger resulting in 9/11, who disgraced himself and America through his sexual acts in the White House, and who blatantly lied about it under oath, that supports unions that destroy businesses, that controls the education system that keeps children ignorant and fails to adequately instruct them in the fields of science and mathematics and prepare kids for managing money, that supports the ACLU, that does not acknowledge moral values, that provides sanctuary cities for unfettered mass illegal immigration, straining our national resources, consuming our government social services, crowding our emergency rooms, costing the country billions of dollars in bilingual accommodations, increasing crime rates and gang violence, increasing vehicular accidents, competing with Americans for jobs, costing legal immigrants their shot at immigration, introducing third world diseases into the country, allowing opportunities for terrorist infiltrations, and altering the voting demographics to keep themselves in political power, that extinguishes debate about illegal immigration by calling people racist who express any type of concern about the issue, that extinguishes debate about radical Islam by branding people racist and Islamophobic who express concern of the global spread of the radical ideology, that expresses false concerns for the poor and downtrodden while working behind the scenes to enact government policies that keep the masses down, poor, uneducated, uninformed, and dependent in order to keep their votes, that blocks military recruiters from campuses and harasses their offices, that attacks the Boy Scouts for their beliefs, that supports the banning of the ROTC from college campuses, that believes that people who commit crimes are victims of society and shouldn't be punished, that bends over backwards to accommodate atheists who become offended by Christian symbols and works to prevent the offense of Muslims, but who openly encourages offending Christians through hateful atheist displays, offensive artwork, media mockery, and the elimination of religious symbols in public places. That supports the UN and views it as an objective world organization that stands up to oppression and injustice. That supports the doctrines of socialism, communism, and fascism all at once as evidenced by their economic policies, social policies, legislative practices, and street tactics of intimidation and silencing debate. That appoints communist czars and members to their administration. That tries to skirt our government's system checks and balances. That is ignorant of history. That is responsible for destroying 1/6 of our economic infrastructure and enacting government control over the field of medicine against the will of the people. And that is responsible for the moral, economic, and social decline of our country.
Wow. I never gave it much thought before. I just have gone along with what my university professors told me. By the way, how exactly did you end up in that cage?
Since you were able to confiscate all of our guns through firearm restrictions and bans, I am now stuck in a cage over this fiery lava pit of doom. Please help me.
Well, even if some of your reasons make sense, I will leave you in that cage because you make more money than I do and I'm jealous. When you bite the dust, we will then take your money and divide it up amongst us to buy more votes. Then we will party until the sun comes up. I sure love being a liberal Democrat.